Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan, and welcome to the latest edition of our Intro into the Vault series, where we look at cult classic movies throughout the decades, from the 2000s to the 1990s to the 80s to the 70s. And this week, our special feature is 1994 is the year. The film is called The Specialist. And if you remember The Specialist, you might remember for all its blockbusting explosive scenes. The cast of The Specialist was Eric Roberts, Sylvester Stallone, Sharon Stone, Rod Steiger, and our special guest this evening, the one and only, the renowned Hollywood legend, the James Woods. And if you think of James Woods, you think of movies like True Crime, Nixon, Casino, The Getaway, The Hard Way, Vampires, White House Down, to name but a few. But tonight we're going to talk to James specially about The Specialist. And James, I watched The Specialist back there again there today, and I suppose as a boy growing up, we all loved that sort of adventure, that sort of explosions, guns, mad scenes, fireworks and all that. Being on the cast of Specialist and seeing that stunt team in effect, were you sort of a little boy sort of saying wow every second when you see all these big explosions happening in front of your eyes?
Yeah, you say wow because oftentimes we were in the middle of them, and you say, wow, I hope these special effects guys know what they're doing. And of course, they were fantastic and, top quality people. We had a great producer, Jerry Weintraub, the late, great Jerry Weintraub. Lucio Yosa was a wonderful director, and the cast, honestly, I loved the cast. Sylvester Stallone is maybe hard for a lot of people to believe, one of the funniest people on the face of the earth. He's very witty, very fast, very quick. We've always liked each other. I knew Sly before he did Rocky. He was living at an apartment up on Camino Palermo. He'd been in a movie called Lords of Flatbush, and he had written a script called Paradise Alley. He'd also written Rocky, but he wasn't even talking about it yet. But it was the second movie he had made that he directed, I guess, and produced, Paradise Alley. And he wanted to do what they call like a table read with actors he liked. So he pulled some actors together. I'd never met him. He said, hey, would you do this? I said, oh, yeah, sure. Nice to meet you. And, I liked you in Lords of Flatbush. And, we're all young actors, trying to make our way. And we did a reading, and I kind of liked him, never saw him again. And next time I saw him pretty much was when we were doing The Specialist together. We'd bumped into each other socially. And here he was, this big star, and still the same funny, wonderful guy that he was when I knew him before, when he was living in an apartment and trying to get his movies made. And Sharon is still, to this day, one of my very best friends, one of the smartest people in the business. By the way, a little positive political thing. I often say that she should be nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize, or maybe a Nobel Prize in medicine, because at a time when it was really dangerous for an actor to do, she stepped forward on the front lines of the fight against AIDS, when there was a lot of horrible misunderstanding about that disease at the time, and for an actress to put herself in the crosshairs like that and save lives was a remarkable thing to do. And I think that she's really a world hero for doing it, and a remarkable person. I love Sharon. And Eric's a great actor, and Rod Steiger, a legend. So, we were just having a blast. We're shooting in Miami, it was just great. It was a great experience.
And James, one thing I sort of noticed on that shooting, you were shooting in Miami, but you started on March the 2nd and you were finished by May the 8th. So that was really a quick wrap, really, in terms of a turnaround for a movie of, when you think of all that is compelled into that movie for an hour and a half. So was it fairly sort of rigorous, long sort of days? Because that turnaround is less than 2 months, really.
Well, it's funny you asked that. And I know exactly why we did it in exactly the days we did it. Jerry Weintraub had a deal with the studio, with Warner Brothers, that if he finished by a certain date, kept it under budget and on time to the day, he got a really big bonus, like a big percentage bonus. And the last day of shooting actually was in Tennessee, where we shot the opening of the movie on the bridge. Yeah. And we have the big fight scene down below on the side of the river. And we didn't really finish that fight scene. And Jerry said, we're done. It's a wrap. That's it. he got on the Warner jet to go home and said, "Come on, I'll give you a ride." So I'm on the Warner jet, and he called up Terry, the head of the studio at the time. He goes, "Finished on time, on schedule. Get my budget, get my bonus ready, baby." And that was it. I mean, we finished on time for that bonus, and that's no joke. That's why we finished. And then we did pickup shots back in LA where we made the fight scene work with Sly and me.
And James, doing my research on the specialist as well, and I don't know if you were one of the first people hired, but the directors approached Steven Seagal first for the role of Sylvester Stallone, and Sylvester Stallone for the roles, and then Steven Seagal obviously wanted too much, and obviously Sylvester Stallone took on the role. Did you know at the time, were you cast after Sylvester Stallone, or were you sort of in, and how did opportunity come about for you in terms of getting cast on the special?
It's really interesting. I'd been with another agent for years, and most actors will never say this, but I felt that I was going into a little bit of a career slump at that point. I just didn't feel that I was working with the people I wanted to work with, and the quality of movies I wanted to be doing, and so on. And I went with a new agent, with Ed L'Amato and Tony Howard over at ICM. And about the third week I was there, Tony called up and said, "Listen, there's a fellow named Jerry Weintraub. He does big commercial movies. He's a character," and he is. I love Jerry, but he was tough. I mean, it's like, here's the deal. He always stuck by his word. Whatever the deal was, you got it. You got it. Not a penny more, no post-negotiating, nothing. And, a lot of times he would take people who were probably worth more than they were going to get for that movie, but it was kind of people who needed a little bit of a career bump at that point. And I have to say, I think it was kind of true of all of us in a way. You can say, "Oh, the big star, Sylvester Stallone and Sharon Stone, Jimmy Woods is doing great, and Rod Starr." But in fact, at that time, we were all just a little, we could use a good commercial bump. And she said, "Jerry loves the idea of you playing this character. He knows that you're, most importantly, always prepared, always on time, know your lines, know what you're doing, And I said, "Great. Well, yeah, that's, pride myself in that reputation. This is a commercial project. Get in there, get it done, do your best, no messing around." I said, "Great," because that's my homework. And I pretty much felt like it was, not, would I want to be working in that movie, or would I want to be doing a Martin Scorsese movie? Well, of course, we'd all want to be doing a Martin Scorsese movie, but I'm never going to downplay the specialist, because it was a kind of nice bump back up in my career. I got sort of working again, and not that I wasn't, but I just wasn't doing what I wanted to do. And I always felt very grateful. It was the second once I got that, Warner Brothers was really thrilled with the work I was doing, and all of a sudden I started getting offers, and things picked up again. And a couple of years later, I had another Academy Award nomination, working with Castle Rock and Rob Reiner, and I was back in the zone in which I really felt most comfortable, which was movies that could be commercial, but more importantly, kind of awards quality movies. And I'm not saying awards are important in and of themselves, although I'm not going to pretend they aren't. They're wonderful to get, but they do signify a certain tenor of movie, which this was not an awards movie. Okay, Casino's an awards movie potentially, or Ghost of Mississippi that I was nominated for, or Salvador that I was nominated for. Those kinds of movies, Oliver Stone movies, Martin Scorsese movies, all the great directors that I've worked for. But this was, getting back in the saddle, and I thought it was a very wise commercial move.
And James, you mentioned there the fight scene at the start, and obviously there was typical sort of hands-on sort of scenes and action scenes. Did you do some of those stunts yourself, or did you have a stunt double in terms of working on the specialist?
Well, I have a stunt double with everything I do. A fellow named Steve Lambert. But then they always say, "Well, we'd like to do one with you," and you end up doing it all. So, I mean, honestly, I've dislocated a shoulder, I've broken fingers, I've had guns shot in my ear. I've had so many injuries on movies, and you just keep going, But I almost always do most of my stunts. I mean, I'm not Tom Cruise. Don't get me wrong. I'm astonished some of the stuff that guy does. You know, I just admire his bravery, and a little shocked at maybe how insane it is that he puts himself in that position, or that any stunt people do. I mean, stunt people do things that are just astonishing to me that they would do it. But, you know, in Vampires, for example, we had a motel we were going to blow up. And the guys who do Walking Dead, great group, they said, okay, you're going to come out of here. We have 10 cameras. I think they had 10 or 12 cameras. And John Carpenter said, when you come walking out, we're going to blow up the whole hotel at once. A motel at once. They built an entire motel. I said, okay, no cuts. He said, nope, you're going to be in there with these big barrels of gasoline everywhere. You're going to light the Zippo and throw it down and then come out and we're going to hit the fuses. I said, I'm sorry, I'm going to light the Zippo? They said, yeah, believe it or not, it's not going to ignite it because the fumes are controlled. Okay. And people always use it as an example, like on Twitter and stuff, showing me being macho. But the reason I was macho was John Carpenter said to me, listen, unless you die, do not cut the scene, no matter what happens. I don't care if the truck doesn't start. I don't care if you fall over, you get knocked out or whatever. Pick yourself up and keep walking because we have no coverage on this. The cameras are on you tight, they're on the thing, but they're all at the same time. And we can't blow up the building again because we have to build the whole thing. It's like a 20-room motel. And I said, okay, well, I was in there with all that gasoline. I thought, if this ignited right now, I would literally, they would never find me. I would literally just be charred duck. I would be burned to a crisp. And when I come out, people say it's really interesting because it looks so real, because when it blows, you see me go like this as I'm walking. It was because the force of the explosion literally kind of lifted me a touch off my feet. I remember thinking, almost said, holy shit. And when I got to the truck for a second didn't start. And I just knew not to flood it. And then we got it started and screeched out of there. And it played like a charm. But I tell you, not the movie we're talking about, but at that moment, I thought, this is maybe the craziest thing I have ever done in my life. When I was standing there with all those wires going into these, like, just gasoline, just big, gigantic barrels of gasoline, I thought, this is absolute madness, you know? And you think, well, I can always kind of hop out of here, but no.
And James, on your character, Ned, I suppose throughout the movie, he was probably a bit wired, dare I say, a bit of a chip on the block. He had a bit of a chip, carrying a chip on his shoulder throughout that sort of film. Was it hard to progress to insinuate those sort of actions where you're sort of tense and you're sort of wired the whole sort of movie in terms of to keep yourself in that sort of state in between sort of takes?
Well, I use as a metaphor, the movie's about an explosives expert. So I said, well, let's do the obvious. He's got pardon the pun, a short fuse. He's constantly ready to hit that fuse at all times. He's just ready to rock at all times. Okay. So a very interesting thing happened. We had a wonderful crew. I find all the crews that work on movies pretty wonderful, really hardworking people. Like many actors, we're very grateful to our crews, but we had a really great crew. We had this wonderful props man. And I feel I have to look it up. I should have before I forget his name now, 20 some odd years later, but he came up to me. Jerry Weintraub was having his eyes done, cosmetic surgery on his eyes, and he was out for a day because he was a hands-on producer. Let's get it done, get it done, get it done. So we had the set with Lucio, with the director, and it was a big scene in the police station where I'm at odds with the cop. And a lot of people loved the scene with the fountain pen. That scene wasn't in the movie.
Okay.
So what happened was we shot a similar scene, but it was just kind of smaller and tighter. Just, you know, the guy and I kind of exchanged words, and, you know, we're at odds. And the property comes up to me, says, hey, listen, we're kind of done. We have a half an hour before lunch. So Lucio came and said, Anything else we can do? And he said, I have an idea. He said, if I could rig a piece of Semtex and make it look like that you could ignite it with a device like a fountain pen, like a ballpoint pen, or something, could you do anything with that? And the other actor was this, actually, I think it was a day player from Miami, who wonderful, who played the cop. And I said, hey, come on, what do you think? He goes, yeah, maybe I could say this and you could say that. And I said, yeah, let's try. And we kind of rehearsed it really quick and we improvised it. And we improvised that scene. And it's one of everybody's favorite scenes in kind of in our part of the movie, in the villain part of the movie. A lot of people say, oh, I love that scene, love that scene. And it was actually a scene that we just improvised on the spot. Now Jerry comes back and he goes, I'm sorry, are you like doing your own movie or something? I go, well, yeah, actually, just hear me out. Watch the dailies. I think you're going to like, Jerry and I get along great, but he was, business. And he came back, he said, you know what, I love it. We're going to use it. And they used it. And it actually is my favorite scene in the movie,
Me
that
too.
and one other ad lib with a guy in the elevator when I said, get a new shirt. That scene at the end, we're all running around like, you go out there and you get him. He comes around, just lay it out to him. Oh, and then in the middle of this big shot with all these cameras, this guy who's like a civilian at the Fontainebleau, he's just like doesn't realize we're making a movie, walks into the elevator in the middle of the take wearing this ridiculous shirt, big bright red shirt. And in the middle of it, I said, and I knew the take was done, but I, same chart, I said, you guys go there, you go here, you get a new shirt. And I went on and cut, everybody burst into, really, it was really funny at the time. And he said, let's do it again. I go, you'll use that take. And Jerry said, listen, I'll make you, we did actually have a bet. He said, I'll make you $100 bet that take will not be in the movie. I said, I think it will be. He said, I'm cutting the picture on the producer. Don't take the bet. I said, but you're a smart producer and you're going to do your first test screening. I'll make the deal with you. I'll bet you $100 that'll be in. If you'll put it in, fair play, really put it in, try to make it work, the scene where you put it in with the first test audience. Well, the test audience screamed laughing when it happened, and it didn't hurt the momentum of this thing. And by then I'd built a character. We were shooting a little out of sequence on that, but I built a character who was a sardonic, wisecracking, high tension, and you're shooting in Miami. So it's supposed to have that kind of, although it wasn't an issue in the movie, but you always associate Miami with the sort of Miami Vice, cocaine fueled gangster shootout. I always think of Scarface and Al Pacino's great performance and that great script by Oliver Stone, that kind of tension. That's what it was. And this bit of humor somehow, rather than deflating the tension in the scene, seemed to, in fact, work to, give it some kind of, like a quick breath so we could jump to the next level. It's something this guy would do, as it turned out. So it worked.
And I suppose, James, my penultimate question for you, I suppose you have been to our Emerald Isle shores in the past here in Ireland, and if so, what's one of your best stories from your time in Ireland, and have you got to visit most of our beautiful country?
Well, here's the sad thing. My family on my mom's side is from Connemara.
Okay, County Galway.
Yeah, County Galway. And my grandmother's, they were half Irish, half Indian. My grandmother's original name was Cook, and her name was Clara Louise Cook Smith O'Neill McNamara. I said, how'd that happen? Said, my mom said, she had 3 husbands, they all died, and I said to my grandmother, how did everybody die? She said, oh, I hate the Irish. I said, you married 3 of them. She goes, that's why I hate them. I said, that's a complete lie because, I said, sweetie, you're just pulling my leg and I love you. She said, that's what they all said, and they rolled over. I said, Jesus Christ, you are Irish, because that sense of humor. I have literally never been to Ireland because I didn't want to go there when I was shooting. I want to go visit. Okay. Yeah. And during the pandemic, I was about the time I said, let's go to, I said to my wife, let's go to Ireland and really spend some time there. But I'll give you a quick story from Ted Kotcheff, wonderful director from Canada. Ted said, the first time I ever was shooting in the Isles, I went to Ireland. I walked into a pub. I sat down. A fellow sitting next to me, and he says, So where are you from then? He said, oh, I'm from Canada. He goes, oh, straight off the ice then, are you? It's like everybody's a poet. And by the way, this is a little Irish thing. One of my great experiences of my life, I was at MIT, but Harvard had a drama society, where it was open to everybody in Boston, and I auditioned for it. And I ended up playing Sean. We did a stage version, the New Poets Theater did, of Finnegan's Wake.
Okay.
And Tom Clancy played Shem, and I played Sean. So, and I have read every word that James Joyce ever wrote. And by the way, I was in Borstal Boy on Broadway, where Thomas McKenna was our director, from, of course, from Ireland, a great Irish director back in that time, from the Abbey Theatre. Wonderful experience. I really loved the guy. He was just terrific, and a lot of wonderful Neil Chavin and so many great Irish actors at the time. And I have to say, one of the proudest experiences of my life is that I have Irish blood in me. I may never have gotten back to my gracious homeland, but I'll get there someday. But you know, when you have Irish blood, yeah, Ireland is with you every minute. You can't escape it.
And finally, James Woods, my final question to you, and this is probably the hardest question I'm going to ask you in this interview. Let's take The Specialist, and let's take your character Ned Trent, and let's pretend they did an encyclopedia on the Specialist, and they listed every character, and under each character they left 2 blank sentences, not really an epitaph as such, but in terms of 2 words, 2 sentences to describe the character. And one of the person who was producing that encyclopedia, that sort of dictionary as such, rang your talent agent and said, we wanted James Woods to write those 2 sentences to describe the character, the person Ned Trent was. What would you like those 2 sentences to read? If Ned Trent was walking down the street across from you and your wife, and you were walking the other way, and you told your wife, how would you describe him as a person in 2 sentences?
Ned Trent is a walking bundle of TNT, and when you press the fuse, you know what you get to see before the last moment of your life? A stylish angel smiling to you and giving you the old goodbye.
The old goodbye. On that note, in terms of goodbyes, unfortunately, our time has ran out with the legendary James Woods there this evening. James, thanks for being part of our Into the Vault series, looking back at cult classic movies. This week's featured 1994, The Specialist. Do go check it out. Do rent it out online again. Do check it. Keep seeing it. The residency checks will keep coming, James. Wait for the more time you keep watching it anyway. But also a wonderful cast: Eric Roberts, Sylvester Stallone, Sharon Stone, Rod Steiger, and the one and only James Woods. James, pleasure. It's great to see you're currently still active and currently still in the business, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavors.
And feel free to use this anytime you want. Everybody, if you get a chance, always watch Into the Vault with Jim Conlan. I swear, it's the most wonderful series. It keeps every great movie from every great decade in the past alive, and makes you find little hidden treasures you never expected. It's a great series. Congratulations, Jim, and thanks so much for having me on. It was an honor.
Thank you, James.
Cheers.
Take care now.
Okay, bye-bye.